Hey, welcome to the Dropship Podcast. And today we're going to talk about how the first sale in your dropshipping business will change your life. No question about it. It's one of the funnest things. Funnest? Is that a word? One of the funnest things we get to see in our Slack group, in our Facebook group for members. When someone gets their first sale, everyone celebrates because it's such a life-changing moment. And so I kind of wanted to relive the stories of our first sales. I have a couple that come to mind, John. Do you have one that comes to mind for you of like how impactful it was? It could be a student too, right? I can think of a few students where it's just like I'm rooting for them, right? Like anytime a student comes in here and they're doing the work and, you know, seeing the ups and downs and learning the ads and all that stuff, when we see, you know, something in the show off channel in our Slack of like, I did it, 2 days into this, I'm not even running ads yet and I got a sale. It's a special moment.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny. I mean, my first sale was 8 years ago, roughly. And yeah, I can still remember it. I can still remember the room I was in. I can still remember exactly everything about it. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, I've made thousands of sales since, and I don't remember many others, to be honest, like specifically. Some of the big ones I do, for sure. Some of the ones that really stood out, I can remember some of those. But yeah, that first one is like pretty much clear as day, right? Like it's funny. All the other things that have happened in life since then, and that really does stick out. Now, I think you're right. It is a life-changing thing because I think that's there's a couple of points before that where it really gets real, right? I think one of those is when you start calling suppliers and you start getting people saying, yeah, sure, we're happy to work with you, right? I think that makes it feel a bit more real. And we had a post in our Slack the other day from a student who's like, oh, holy shit, I can't believe it. 3 suppliers have said yes to me. It's amazing. Little old me, blah, blah, blah. And she was really stoked just that some suppliers had said yes. But I think the minute you make that first sale, right, you're like, yes, this works. Yes, I've put in work. People trust me. People will, like complete strangers are spending money on my site, are paying me basically. And it all just kind of clicks into place for you. And I think that's part of the reason, and then you can just say, okay, I can do it once. Can I do it again? I can do it again. And yeah, that pathway that I was thinking about what I wanted to achieve when I got into this, now I can see that it might actually be real. I can replace my income. I can make $1 million, like whatever your goal is there, it just, everything gets that little bit more real, I think. The minute that you get that cha-ching or wherever you are, however you receive that notification, for sure.
Yeah, emotion drives memories, right? So yeah, I've heard this on so many stages, but do you remember where you were for September 11th, 2001? Most Americans would say, yes, I know exactly where I was when that happened. And then they're like, okay, where were you September 1st? Or September 11th, rather. Did I say September 1st, by the way? That's terrible. September 11th, 2010. And of course not, right? You don't even know where you were September 12th or September 1st of that month. And so this first sale is the same thing. I've had a lot of sales since then, but I remember that first one. I remember, and I've told it on the podcast before, laying in bed. It's midnight. I have to work at 4 a.m. I don't know why I'm still awake on a Sunday night. My hours always got screwed up. And I'm scrolling Twitter and cha-ching, pops on your screen. I'm butt naked. I run in the living room butt naked. My wife's watching TV and I'm dancing like, I did it. It was such an amazing feeling. And, I was scrolling our Slack here while we were talking, not to take the visual away of Ben dancing naked in the living room. No. But Holly, our last one on Monday, got my first order yesterday. I screamed. She has an order in here for $1,994. And there's, hearts and hands and flames and ninja. There's all sorts of emojis in there and a bunch of replies. And so I love seeing this. I love seeing it for me. I can think of another one, which wasn't even my first store. It was a new store I was trying to build. I want to say it was like my 4th store. And I put in a lot of work on it. And my brother, my best friend, who's now my employee, and another friend of ours were driving to a minor league baseball game for the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers. What a sweet logo, by the way, if you're a Timber Rattler kind of fan. The only scariest thing in Wisconsin. So we're driving there, and we're listening to music, and we're ribbing each other. We're buddies and stuff. And so all of a sudden, on the speakers when I'm playing music, cha-ching on the speaker, and I lost it, man. I remember going crazy. Played the song by W&W and Hardwell and Little John. Look it up. It'll get you fired up. And, I'm just screaming. And they were like, man, you've been doing this for a couple of years. Why is this so exciting? I'm like, what are you talking about? I just made money on while we're driving to a baseball game. That's pretty cool. So to be able to have that moment is something I wish on every single person here. But none of that can take place if you don't take action. I think one of the things I came to recently, John, actually happened at the gym. Your boy BK hired a trainer. I love all the trolls in our comments that show up every once in a while about BK and maybe losing some weight. So I'm on it for you. I got you covered. But hanging out with my trainer, and he's kind of telling me how he's getting by and he'd like to do more. And the coach in me comes out no matter where I am. So I just start asking him questions of how he can improve his business and how he might want to target a different set of clientele where he can charge more money and those people aren't worried about money. In fact, on the intake, he was like, I want to work with you for about a month so you understand everything and then you don't have to pay me anymore. And I was like, what is that? Like, I'm paying you for accountability. I'm not paying you to learn how to lift weights. I'm paying you so I show up every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Anyway, so we're talking and he says he doesn't want to raise his rates. No one will pay that, of course. And I'm like, oh, I'll pay that. So it's totally fine. Somebody will pay that. And then we move on to the next thing, which is he wants to help all these people. And I was like, that's great. Are you a fan of Gary Vee? And he said, yes. And I said, does Gary charge you a cent for all the value that he's giving you on his podcast and his daily Vee and everything else he's doing? And I said, you can do the same thing. You can put out videos. You can just give away all of this stuff for free and people will pay you for accountability in the gym because you're the best. And he said, yeah, I've been thinking about that. I just, I don't have the right camera and I'm not sure I have the right lighting and I want to make sure it's perfect before I start. And I looked right at him. I said, that's exactly what I was thinking. I wanted to get a six pack before I hired you to train me. And it just like clicked for him of like, oh, there's never going to be a right point to start. And I went further and I was like, look, no one's going to watch your first few videos anyway, besides your mom and your girlfriend and like a couple of your buddies who are going to make fun of you. And like, no one's going to be there anyway. So you can figure out your lighting and your camera and everything else along the way. And so I want to say the same thing to everyone listening to this. Like, if you've been consuming for a while, your next step is to take action. And that might just be going to dropshipbreakthru.com/Shopify and signing up for a free trial and just like messing around in Shopify or uploading a random theme and playing around with putting images on there or, taking our free training so you can isolate like who you want to sell to and finding suppliers and, building out your spreadsheet as John teaches you in one of our trainings. And so like there's many first steps, but you have to get going. You have to move away from consumption and move into action. And there's never going to be a perfect moment where you have your six pack before you start training or have your camera and lighting set up before you get started or have like the idea that you're going to understand Google Ads before you actually get started is insane. And so like John and I were brainstorming before this call. How do we give you a first step? How do we get that first action so that we can get you to that first sale, which will then you'll be hooked. Like it'll change your life. The emotion behind that will drive you to keep going so that you can have more of that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, and ironically, just you're talking about taking that first step and like consuming before you do anything and waiting for the right moment. And like, if you think you're in that place right now, right? It actually doesn't get any easier, like to go from there to taking. So, right, the longer you go down that path of thinking about it and not doing it, it actually gets harder to get started. Like the longer you wait for the perfect time, the more analysis you do, the more things you watch, the more, which honestly, a lot of the time just adds more confusion in for you. You're actually less likely to do anything as time goes on, right? You get years down the track, you still haven't done anything. It's going to feel even harder. You're getting older, right? There's more things maybe coming into your life. There is just never that perfect place, but it does get harder to take action the longer you leave it. Whereas, we're talking about before we started recording here, I was talking about another training I did in one of our Facebook groups, which you can go and join. There's a link in the show notes to it, where I was talking about a couple of mindset things that people have to shift. And one of I was talking about one of the biggest question I get from people who are thinking about getting started in dropshipping is, what's the difference between people who are successful and people who aren't, right? So many people ask this question. One of the things is people who are successful are people who just take action, right? They hear and they do that consistently. So they hear something, they don't go out and read 10 articles about that thing and then watch 10 videos about that thing and then think about it for 3 months before they do it. They just go, oh, yeah, I'm going to go and do that today. And they go and they start doing it and kind of work it out as they go, right? But they just start doing something on the understanding that it's maybe not going to be perfect, but, they just do it anyway. And that's how they approach everything. They just hear something, they go and do it. And if I think about our most successful students in the program, that's a common theme, right? They just go and do stuff. That day when they hear about something, they don't like kind of put it on the back burner and then wait until it's the right time in their business to go and implement that thing. They just go and start doing, right? And so that's, you know, if you're haven't even started yet and you're saying this is something I want to do, you've just got to get in there and do it. Like talking about first sales, talking about my first website, it was fucking shit. Like it was a terrible website, but I just got in and made it and started doing stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like if I had waited until I knew how to build a fantastic website before I get started, I never would have got started, because you can't learn how to build a fantastic website until you actually build a fantastic website. Right? So you've just got to pull your finger out and get into it.
Yeah, I talked about this on a sales call earlier. John and I still do all the sales calls. If you go to dropshipbreakthru.com/call and you kind of want to ask some questions before you're ready to join, you're going to talk to John or myself, which is fantastic. In a lot of ways, we get a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, it's John or it's Ben, which is kind of cool. But on that call today, I spoke with a gentleman who kind of went down this same path. And one of the things I talked about was a metaphor I use a lot on this podcast, which is my twins learning how to ride a bike, and specifically when they went from training wheels to not training wheels. Can you imagine if that 4-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever they were, looked at me and said, you know what, Ben, I'm going to go watch some YouTube videos on how to make this transition. I want to make sure I have I have my head really wrapped around this before I do that. You would look at them sideways, right? Instead, you took them off. You set them on there as they're bawling and you gave them a shove and you said, good luck. And they fell over a few times. And so are you. You're going to make mistakes on your website. You're going to have images that look funny. You're going to make a mistake or two in your ads. Hopefully, by joining a course like John and I have, you're going to avoid some of the bigger potholes along the way. But make no mistake about it, you're going to fall off your bike over and over and over again. And that's how you learn, just like your children learn or anyone else's children learn, as they fall off their bike and scrape their knee and get up and do it again the next day. And so whatever we can do to get you to take action, that's what we're here for. I just want to see, I want to hear, just like Holly this week, I want to hear your first sales story. I want to hear you dancing in the living room naked, whatever it is. I know John cringes every time I talk about this story, but I just want to see people be successful. And look, we deal with, you know, people screaming, hey, you're a scam, this stuff doesn't work. We don't care, because we're here to help the people who are ready to listen. So if you're listening to this, you're ready to take action. And all you need is a little kick in the ass, and that's what we're here for. Here's your kick in the ass.